my future didn't look bright. The first thing I read about Asperger's boldly proclaimed that people with Asperger's will never have a job, will never have friends, and will never be happy. And I was devastated. I didn't know what to make sense of my life. Everything I thought I knew about myself, everything I thought in life was now questioned. I didn't know who I was, what I was. I have the diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, which myself, I got diagnosed later in life. I was age 20, but since then now I'm a public speaker. I've given almost 600 presentations all across the country. Good morning.
Life Skills Autism Ambassador. You diagnosed with autism, came in the show a couple years ago and sort of gave us a primer as to how your world works with autism.
Yeah, that was a good experience, and thanks for having me back. But yeah, I was diagnosed later in life, which is, back then I was diagnosed when I was 20. So 10 years ago, autism awareness is nowhere where we are today. And my mission, and thanks to Life Skills for giving me the opportunity to go out there and say that there is hope, because when I found out my diagnosis, there wasn't that much hope out there.
Right. Autism has gone through a transformation. The world first learned about autism either on 60 Minutes or through the movie Rain Man. And now seems like autism has sort of grown and morphed into something else.
Absolutely, and it's really unique. One of the things I do now, I go out and speak to a lot of schools, and it's amazing. I was in Rolla 2 days ago, and a 6th grader asked me, yeah, is autism more than the movie Rain Man? Which is really amazing that a 6th grader would ask that. But yeah, 20, 30, 40 years ago, the envisionment of autism pretty much was the movie Rain Man, but now we understand that as a full autism spectrum, from people with Asperger's syndrome like myself that are verbal, are in the workplace, to all the way to classic cases of autism. But it's this very broad, vast spectrum. I am the Autism Ambassador for Easter Seals Midwest, and my job is truly personal. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when I was 20 years old. I'm not alone in my diagnosis. Today, 1 in 88 will be diagnosed with the autism spectrum disorder. Autism is more common than childhood cancer, juvenile diabetes, and pediatric AIDS combined. The numbers continue to grow. When I was born, the rate was 1 in 1,500. You'd think everyone would know about it, but there is still a gigantic sense of isolation for families and individuals affected by this diagnosis. And that brings me to something I am very excited about. I call it the Blue Wave. April is Autism Awareness Month, and I can't stress enough the need for awareness and understanding. Part of my job is to speak to entire student bodies at schools, and at some point in time, I will ask the question, okay, how many here know someone or know someone that knows someone that's on the autism spectrum? And when at least 3/4 of the room raise their hand, there's this eerie silence, followed up by whispering, followed up by many whispers of, you mean I'm not alone? Feeling alone, isolated, and hopeless is one of the biggest traps people on the autism spectrum face. I think it's fitting. For those of you that don't know my story, 10 years ago in October, I was a race car driving instructor in Las Vegas. Talk about one of the coolest jobs in the world. But 10 years later, I now have my diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, which I was diagnosed 10 years ago in November, so just right after the best month of my life. Immediately got horrible information, which, again, if you don't know my story, when I got my diagnosis, I looked it up on the internet because my doctor told me good luck. And what I read said that people with Asperger's syndrome will never have a job, will never have friends, and will never be happy. Not a good introduction. And today, though, my whole message going across the country, especially speaking to schools, is that isn't true. There is hope, and my whole concept with this tour is building a foundation for hope. If those around us on the autism spectrum know us and know some of our quirks and can understand us a little bit more, then all of our lives are going to be made the richer for it. So